Hey, it's Les from the TV Dudes. This week, I was lucky enough to chat with Isabel Oliver Marcus. The San Antonio native wasted no time getting her career off the ground on NBC's This Is Us. She was an absolute joy to talk with, and we chat about everything from one-act plays to puppy dogs. It's a great interview, and I hope you enjoy it. Thank you so much for taking the time to do the interview today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for talking to me.
You are playing Allison on second season of This Is Us.
Yes, sir.
And that role is, not many things on that show create a buzz, but can you talk a bit about what we know so far and where Allison fits in the show?
Yes. Yeah. Well, so she was introduced in the very first episode of the second season, really, really quickly. We saw like 10 seconds of her maybe, and she's sitting on the couch holding Teen Randall's hand. And very clearly the kids have just been told that their father has passed away. And so she's sort of introduced as this, seemingly peripheral character, but who's there at such an important time in the kids' lives. Mm-hmm. Potentially the most important time that we've been introduced to in the story so far. So, and then we don't see her again for like episodes and episodes and episodes, until episode 12. And there were 3 clues sort of introduced at the end of the episode 1, which was that Kevin has a cast. He broke his leg, and Kate has a dog, and so and then the redheaded teen girl. So those are the 3 clues. And as we go through the story in season 2, we see each of the other 2 clues fall into place. We see how Kevin hurts his leg, and we see how Kate finds the dog, or actually Jack and Rebecca find the dog, but how the dog comes to be part of their family. So, and then finally in episode 12, we see the redheaded teen girl, and she's sort of the last clue that we're getting closer and closer to the time of Jack's death. So she acts as kind of a marker along the way, a breadcrumb, if you will, for what to expect. And then she plays a little bit of a role after we see the death, because she's there for Randall at such an important time in his life. And in the funeral episode, we get to see that she and Sophie are there supporting their boyfriends. And then we sort of lose track of her, and we don't know where she goes from there.
You had mentioned earlier the redheaded teen girl. That was the original character name when you auditioned, was it not?
Yes. Yeah, well, it was Jane, FKA, redheaded teen girl. But then, so that was the name I auditioned under, was Jane. And then when they billed me as redheaded teen girl for the first episode. So
just sounds like something out of Charlie Brown to me.
Right? Yeah, that's exactly what people said, and yeah, it is right out of Charlie Brown.
You sent in an audition tape, which is unusual.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a bit about making that tape and what that was like, having to step away and do that?
Sure. Yeah. Tapes are, they're not incredibly uncommon because it is such an interesting time, technologically, that we can do that. And I've done a lot of them before because I'm from Texas, and for the first several years of my trying to pursue this career, I was in Texas, and I would send out tapes out here to Los Angeles. What was so unusual about this was that there was so much secrecy around the role, because this show is like all about, it's got a lot of secrets, and it keeps them secret. And so they kind of said, like, we won't accept any tapes, or nobody should see the sides who won't be in the audition room. But I took a chance and I requested to send in a tape because I was actually in Texas at the time. visiting family, although I lived in Los Angeles. I had moved officially. And they let me do it, which is just remarkable given all of the secrecy around it. It was kind of a whirlwind because I got the audition and then I had to rush to get the tape made. And I worked with a coach that I had worked with before in Dallas. Her name is Laura Park Lincoln, and she actually was in like a Friday the 13th movie, and she's really, really good, and she's kind of was a scream queen of the times, and I've worked with her before, and I really, really enjoyed it. So we got in touch, and magically she was available when I needed her to be available, and I got the tape in late, which, sent me into palpitation. I was like, no, I want to get it in, but technology is so difficult, and still, even though it was late, they pinned me the next day, and I flew out to do a chemistry read with Niall Fitch, who plays young Randall, and then they gave me the job.
I had heard you mention working with a coach on the tape and another interview. What kinds of things did you work on, trying to dial that in?
Auditions are such a weird thing because you do them so quickly. You don't have time to really, construct a fully rounded character. But you have to show the casting director where that character might go and what is the potential for the character. And so and you also have to make it look like you are there, even though in an in-person audition, you are just in a room that's usually got gray walls and gray chairs and it's boring and there's nothing in it that is particularly set-like. And in a tape, it's even more constricting because you don't have a room, you've got a backdrop, and that's all they can see. And so you've got to make it, really have to believe that you're there, and you have to sell that. So I worked on sort of finding the things that I would be doing in the room, and just working with those. I also, in the sides that they gave me, I was supposed to be wearing a robe. And so, I wore a cardigan and I used that as the robe, And so I found small things that would really bring to life the energy of the character and the environment of the character without really being able to go deep into who she is, because you just don't have that time, and you don't have the words necessarily to show everything that the character is, but you can show everything that where the character is, and how they behave in this situation. Yeah, I think they are different, but they are also so similar, and I don't think people talk enough about how just basic that acting is. It's just living realistically in imaginary circumstances, and that's true across all forms. It's just, mimes do it, clowns do it, improv does it, everybody does it. And so really the basics are the same, even some of the technical basics. In theater, you have to turn out for the audience, make sure they can see as much of you as possible. You don't want to upstage yourself, and you have to find your light. Those are all things to think about on set. They're just slightly different. They're smaller movements because you've got a smaller frame. But they're not so different as everyone says. But it did take a little getting used to. In theater, I often played the really big characters. I played like Aunt Sponge in James and the Giant Peach, and so she has a fat suit, and it's a really big fat suit, and you like wandering around on the stage. And I played the Queen of Hearts in Alice in Wonderland, and I gave her a voice, and she's like decapitating people. And then in film, I often go toward the more subdued characters. For some reason, like I go in the extremes. I tend to go in the extremes. And that might just have something to do with age. I was on stage more when I was younger. But anyway, so it was an interesting challenge to learn to bring the energy down and focus it more intensely than you do on stage. But the basic process is really not all that different. Yes. Right. Yeah, well, so with this show, I actually, and this was pretty obvious to me even with the audition sides, she's sort of a lightener, like a leavener. You know, she makes the bread rise a little bit more. And that sounds like a weird way to put that, but because it is such an intense show and a lot of the acting is so subdued and centered, but the way she's written is even more comedic than the show tends to be, at least with the audition sides. And with I was in a mall scene when we really get to meet her and learn her name. You know, Randall comes in and he's got this nervous energy because he's about to ask a girl out, and she sort of lightens the mood, and she brings it to a certain more comedic, lighthearted level. And so I think with this show, that is how she fits in to those scenes. So I didn't find the scenes particularly difficult for her. It was true that I was surrounded, you know, most of the scenes I was in were so emotionally grounded and so emotionally distressing that I did have to find that balance between, like, the role of my character is not to be the one crying the hardest. The role of my character is to, you know, add a little bit of intrigue into the scene and to care for this character who we all know and love, Randall. So with this show, it's not been particularly heavy material for me as an actor, except in finding the balance between, like, I can't laugh when they find out their dad has died, but I also can't take away from what they're feeling with my own extreme emotions. Yeah. It sure is. Or movies. I mean, it's basically my first foray into what people consider, like, big things or real, quote, real. I mean, like, I've done short films and student films, and I think those are real, music videos and whatever. And I think they're very real forms of acting, too, but right. Thank you. Oh, the most surprising. Remarkably, and I shouldn't have been surprised by this, but I was taken aback by how good everybody is at their jobs. because while I loved all of the projects I worked on, and I've worked with some really talented people and with some very professional people, like I said, most of the stuff I've done is student films and short films and school plays, and there's always somebody on set who's not on top of it. There's always somebody who's just messing around a little bit, or isn't taking everything seriously, or they take it too seriously. They're so into their project that they don't allow for fluidity or spontaneity or fun. And it's called play. It's a play. Let's play. And so I was really amazed by how professional and on top of it, and how seriously everyone took it, but how they also were willing to crack a joke when the moment was right. When we're in between takes and we've got nothing else to do, it can't hurt to, play around with some wordy banter as long as you're paying attention to what you need to be doing. And so it was a really great energy to be with such professional and hardworking and good at their job people who also were having so much fun with it. Mm-hmm. I think it was the assistant director on set one day. I don't remember his name, but he was incredible. He was directing the extras, and he was just so on top of it. He knew exactly, before the director even said what they wanted, he was like, "Oh no, I got it," and he just was on top of it. And so I was really impressed. I was impressed with the assistant director's job. Everyone on this set is so good. I was fascinated. There's an episode where I decorate cookies, and I was fascinated. They've got the props department, I guess, has cookies on deck so that when I finish decorating one, they can replace it with one that hasn't been decorated. And they've got someone wiping icing off, and it ran so smoothly. And I was like, wow, movie magic. The other thing about doing smaller pieces, smaller films and stuff, is that the actor does a lot of that stuff themselves. When you reset your props, you reset your props. And in this, it was my only job was to be the character, was to do my job. And that was kind of an eye-opener for me, because in other projects, I would have been cleaning the icing off my own cookie. And I totally am okay with that. That was my job for that project. But it was really cool to see something so big and so well-funded, how that runs. Exactly. That's exactly. The other thing that I got to do on set in smaller projects is people don't believe me, but I like holding a boom. I like being part of the sound department, and they're like, no one likes that job. And I'm like, I do. So sometimes I want to help out around set. I'm like, you want me to hold that? But I can't, because it's against union rules, and people could get in trouble. Mhm. I sure did. I did my first play with my school in 5th grade, and I did oral reading for UIL, which is basically a monologue, but with poetry. And then 6th grade, when I started middle school, I did the UIL competition almost every year after that. Yeah. Yeah, the first one I did, I played, it was called I Never Saw Another Butterfly, and I played the last surviving member of a Nazi concentration camp, which doesn't sound like that much of a blast, but it was sort of the first play that I proved to myself that I could do that kind of thing. I could handle that kind of material. And so for that reason, I really enjoyed it. It was an important step in like finding out who I am as an actor, because previously I'd done like just a lot of comedy. And now I don't even really consider myself a very good comedic actress. That's one thing I'm trying to work toward, because after doing I Never Saw Another Butterfly, I realized that my instrument lends itself really well to drama, and particularly harsh drama. So that was an important one. I also was really glad I got to do, that was the one, the James and the Giant Peach was a one act, and that was fun too, because it was such a contrast to Raja, or to Raja from I Never Saw Another Butterfly. And again, it was another like proof that I can handle this kind of eccentric, over the top, very technical role. You know, you've got to mess with your bodysuit, like you make the audience laugh. And so so they were just really integral steps in my learning who I am process as an actor. And I did win Best Actress every time I did it, which is not to be like, I was the best actress, but it is to say, like, those were kind of pivotal moments for myself to say, like, yes, this is a legitimate thing that you can actually do and you can succeed at. It's not a pipe dream. It's not unrealistic. It's a real thing that you can do, and here's the medal to prove that. So again, that's not to be like, well, I'm so good and like nobody else can do it. It's just to say it was an important piece to fall into place for me, as proof that it was a possibility. Right, exactly. Yeah, it was. I had an agent in Texas, and I got an agent in Los Angeles when I moved out, or when I came out here the first time, because I came out like in chunks, and when I came out the first time, I booked my agent here. My mom came with me each time that we came out. My mom brought me with, or I came out with her. But we had to leave our puppy dog in San Antonio because we just couldn't find a place that would let us have her for less than like $150 extra a month. And that's just like too much. And then, and actually we had a puppy dog pass away, before she ever got to come out to Los Angeles, which is really, really sad. But we adopted a new one, Pepper, and when we moved out to Los Angeles officially, she came with, and I'm actually looking at her right now. And she's a great LA dog. She has her own Instagram. So at Pepper Tries. Oh, what kind of dog do you have? Oh. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that does it. I love Australian Shepherds. Yeah. Oh, that's so good. Thank you. I appreciate it too. I'm so happy to share my story, and even more happy to share Allison's story. You know, she spoke in 2 total episodes, but I've been working on growing her, and I really appreciate you giving me a platform to talk about it. So. Thank you. Thank you so much. You too. Bye.
The TV Dudes is an independently run podcast and a member of the Electric Sweater Podcast Network. We are exclusively listener-supported. If you'd like to help us out, go to patreon.com/tvdudes. You can like us on Facebook and Twitter at TV Dudes. All the music for our show is by our friend and original TV dude, Gregory J. Amani Smith. To find out more about us, go to thetvdudes.com and electricsweater.com. I'm Grant Davis. Thanks for listening.